So we're finally going to get a vote on the Epstein files. And a lot happened on Epstein this week, by the way. Do we really want 50-year mortgages? The government's reopened, and you might get a check from the tariffs, but we've already promised a whole lot to everybody. I'm Adam Kinzinger. I was in Congress for 12 years, an Air Force pilot for 22, and this is your Week in Review. So, as of the government reopening, which finally happened, and I'll get to in a second, the 218th signature on the discharge petition happened to force a vote on releasing the Epstein files. Now, a couple of points on this. First off, what is a discharge petition? It is a very rarely successful thing in Congress that forces something to the floor to vote on, despite the objections of the leadership, the speaker, the majority leader, etc. Why is it so rare? Because you have to have 218 signatures, which means a majority of those in Congress have to sign it. And typically, if you're in the majority, so you're the party that has more than 218, you never sign discharge petitions because it is seen as a real kind of screw you to the leadership. So you just don't do it. So it's very rare for this to be done. In this case, it's done. And so Speaker Mike Johnson, who has been doing his best to try to prevent this from coming to the floor on the Epstein files, has agreed that this will have to be voted on next week. An interesting thing to watch is how many Republicans are going to end up voting for this ultimately. You had a handful that signed the discharge petition. As of this recording, there were a handful more that said they would vote yes. Now, the question is it going to be 10 or 15 next week when the vote comes, or could the dam break and it ends up being 50 or 80 or 100 people that vote to release the Epstein file? That will make a difference, because simply because this thing is voted out of the House does not mean all of a sudden all of the files are released. Like anything else, it has to be done by the Senate and then signed by the president, which the president has made it very clear he has no interest in doing. So in theory, you would need to get to a veto-proof majority, which is 2/3 of both branches. Very unlikely, but that doesn't mean anything's hopeless. What it's really doing is sending a very strong message in this moment that people want answers, and that the status quo and the questions about Epstein no longer can be hidden. Let's think about this. Donald Trump, first off, claimed it was all the Democrats in the Epstein list. Then all of a sudden it comes out he doesn't want it to come out. It's proven that his name is in it, according to many in the FBI and DOJ. Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his handler, is in prison down south. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump's DOJ person goes down, interviews her, and then moves her to a really nice prison where she gets great treatment. And it also comes out that she's expecting her sentence to be commuted. She's an actual child trafficker. Why in the world would Donald Trump want to protect a child trafficker? Unless she has information that could get him. And he's caving a deal. He's marking a deal to her. Probably what's happening. And so this pressure is going to continue to build. So just watch. The biggest thing to keep in mind this week is how many Republicans vote for it. October jobs and inflation data. Well, we don't know what it is because it was held back. The Bureau of Labor Statistics claims they may never release the October 25 jobs and inflation report because of the federal shutdown. They said it halted all collection operations. It's weird because in the past, that's never been an issue. Somehow this time it is. Also happens to be at a moment when the economic data doesn't look so good. So we may have to wait till November for this, which could be a pretty brutal surprise if, in fact, we have high inflation and a lot of people are being laid off. And I think Donald Trump kind of knows this is happening, and the administration knows, and they're trying to protect it from people because Donald Trump can never admit he failed. And this would certainly be a failure. But one of the bigger problems, more than us just knowing what's going on, is the Federal Reserve has to make decisions based on this data. Are they going to lower interest rates? Are they going to raise them based on what inflation's doing or what the economy's doing? And if they don't know, they can't make that decision. If they can't make that decision, whatever is happening, whatever trend is happening that's bad, will likely accelerate because the Federal Reserve can't respond to it. An interesting point, too. When all this talking about workers and stuff like that, the Trump organization itself has had a 52% rise in foreign worker visas since 2021. There's H-2A, H-2B visas, which is like temporary workers and skilled workers. all that kind of stuff across Mar-a-Lago, his 2 golf clubs, his vineyard estate in Virginia. They've been pulling in foreign workers at a time when we're deporting everybody from the United States. Donald Trump is importing workers, claiming that he can't find the skill sets anywhere else for his own company. This isn't a huge deal. It's not going to be necessarily some big scandal, but I think it's worth pointing out the hypocrisy that continues to exist in the Trump administration when he's talking about putting U.S. workers first, and he's increasing the number of foreign workers he's hiring. Obviously, we talked about the end of the government shutdown. 43 days the government shutdown was. That was the longest in U.S. history. The current funding bill that was passed funds the government through the end of January, with some other big stuff done for longer. There were 1.25 million federal workers that were furloughed and working, and those that were working unpaid. They're going to receive back pay. So a lot of them had missed paychecks, which if you're living paycheck to paycheck or a couple paychecks, can get really dangerous, and they'll get that back pay, which is good. As you might have been paying attention, flights were starting to get crazy all over the country because there was a reduction in the amount of flights that were flying in the skies. I honestly think that was a shtick that was done on purpose. I don't think that was necessary, but not a big deal to argue about. But now the staffing improvements are coming back, so flights should get back on schedule. And then SNAP, which is the food stamps program, which Donald Trump was proactively trying to stop, which is the weirdest political decision I had ever seen. That is now extended through the end of September next year. So that won't be an issue until the end of September. So that's a good thing. People can continue to get the food assistance that they need. But the big thing is, and it's what the Democrats were fighting for, which is the extension of these health insurance subsidies under Obamacare. So there's subsidy that comes in that brings down some of the premium. So if you're on Obamacare, you have probably already seen your premiums could rise as much as 30% next year. And that is the Republicans' fault because they are not extending this. In fact, they stopped those as part of a way to pay for their big bill they passed, which is actually pretty bad. So Republicans own this. I don't think it's good politics, but we'll have to see if that sticks through to the American people. I want to talk very quickly about Ukraine. Ukraine, obviously very close to my heart. The winter's approaching. Ukraine is preparing for one of its hardest winters yet amid these escalating attacks by Russia. Russia, who fires indiscriminately into Ukraine and kills civilians and also goes after energy infrastructure. So they have less heat, less power. It's going to be a very brutal winter for Ukrainians. And so it's very important that the West continue to help them rebuild that infrastructure, to have the weapons they need to defend themselves, the heating systems they need, because civilian life right now is getting very difficult. And frankly, life on the front is getting pretty difficult. There's pressure in Petrovsk and there's pressure in Zaporizhia by the Russians. The Ukrainians are outnumbered 10-1, but they're defending heroically. But the Russians keep sending their men into a meat grinder. They're dying at high rates, but they continue to throw more and more people at it. So Ukraine has a dual challenge: keeping its civilians safe, sustaining its war effort during this cold and more difficult season. The Trump administration is also proposing a 50-year mortgage. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Not the stupidest, but it's pretty close. So right now you can get a 30-year mortgage. 50-year, Donald Trump claims, well, that's going to make your mortgage go down. Well, it is, but you're overall going to pay a ton more because now you're paying it off over 50 years. There's a big problem with home affordability in this country. The way to fix that is not to lower your monthly payment by increasing the total amount you're going to pay over your life. The way to fix that is to build more houses and have more supply so more people can buy, and that buying does not pressure things up, or to bring interest rates down. But Donald Trump and his lizard brain thinks that I'll just make why don't you just have a gazillion year loan? That would be great. And then you pay $1 a month, but it's for over a gazillion years. Okay. Yeah, that's really brilliant. So anyway, that's what he's wanting to do. Everybody else thinks it's stupid. And lastly, things I want to talk about is Donald Trump is talking about sending every American a $2,000 tariff dividend, a check in the mail for all the tariffs we've collected that he claims the foreign countries have paid for, that in reality you've already paid for. So what is Donald Trump proposing? Sending you $2,000 back of your money that he took. That's what every good dictator does. I'm going to take your money, I'm going to put my name on it and give it to you, and you're going to think it's from me, but it's actually from you. Now, the interesting thing is he's promising that. He's also promising he's going to reduce the national debt with the tariffs. He's already given $40 billion to back up Argentina. He claims he's going to build the Golden Dome and missile defense system. He's going to bail out the farmers. He's going to get rid of income taxes. He's going to reduce the federal debt and give everybody rebate checks, all with the same tariff money that works out to be about 8 times what tariffs we've actually collected. Not to mention the fact that at any time, the Supreme Court could very likely throw out his ability to create tariffs, which means all that money has to get refunded anyway. That's what happens when you put a completely incompetent guy in as president and a party that knows better that completely surrounds him and does whatever he wants. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. Be sure to hit like, subscribe to follow for more. Remember to check out wearthemoutproducts.com. WEAR, themoutproducts.com. We have some great stuff on there. And also check out The Last Republican. It's a documentary about me. It's on Apple TV. You can get on Amazon Prime. Take a look. And in the comments, let me know what you think. Everybody have a great day.